product provided by Nintendo for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. All the scattered pieces of the puzzle are coming together into a cohesive whole, the likes of which we have never seen. Momo from Xenosaga is making a triumphant return as the new rare blade in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Switch DOS Edition, and we have some new information. It may seem small, but the ramifications of this information may indicate the culmination of the Xeno story up to this point. Oh yeah, we have a lot to talk about. Hello everybody, it's your boy Jmulls, and grant me a miracle. We head on over to the Nintendo of Europe website for Xenoblade Chronicles DO Switch 2 Edition, which is weirdly enough way better than the American website, and we scroll way down, and we'll find a section on Momo. Battle alongside Momo, a new rare blade available exclusively in the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. Swap between Momo's two modes, real mode and imaginary mode. We will get to that. On the fly to change not only her appearance, but also her elemental affinity. Momo also has her own blade quest, the Home of the Soul. Sounds like it'd be a really good John Denver song, not gonna lie to you. That can be unlocked during your adventure. Now, do we know anything about the quest itself besides the name, the Home of the Soul? No. However, the name being the Home of the Soul is extremely interesting, especially coming off the back of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. Now, why is that? One of the big plot twists of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and this was true even for the original version, was that the Lifehold was destroyed this entire time. And we think it got destroyed in the crash landing on Mira. This entire time, we thought that the Mimiosomes contained our consciousnesses because of the Lifehold, because we are still basically in the cloud save. But Elma makes the discovery that the entire database for the Lifehold, the entire thing, consciousness included, has just been wiped out. So why is everyone still alive in the Mimiosomes? We thought up to this point it was a race against time and a race against the ganglion. But if they were able to destroy the Lifehold, our souls would go with it. But that's clearly not the case. And then Elma makes a theory. It has to be something about Mira. It's this planet, it's something about this planet. Because based on the information that she has available to her at the time, that makes the most sense. We know there's some weird things going on with Mira itself. So it only makes sense that if the Lifehold was already destroyed, has to be something about Mira itself that is sustaining our existences. That turned out not to be the case.
And to get a little technical, it was a nexus of parallel universes. It was like the backstage of space, the border town of all universes. You might call it a rift between worlds, light years beyond the realm of human science. But strangely, most of the Ares features kept functioning as normal. Well, what came flooding into me in the Ares was the consciousness of all living things across all universes. Void, see, I think he was held there. His consciousness, at least. You told me about the Vita, how it was a vessel to facilitate Void's coming. I guess what it did was channel his soul in some shape or form, freeing him of his shackles.
What does that mean, though?
Now hold on a sec. That's like how our MIMs work.
All the loose threads seem to be coming together.
Perhaps Void escaped from his cell by tracking the Ares as it left the rift between worlds. When I was transported inside the rift along with the Ares, machine and mind got melded together. We became inseparable. I won't pretend to understand. But it wouldn't have been possible for a living human to hold onto their self there otherwise.
Melted with the Ares. I think I get it. Not in the physical sense of being one thing, but like an engine running under the hood?
While inside the rift, I saw where the rivers of consciousness converge. Something like the crossroads between universes. Here's another nugget spun off from the Ares analysis of the rift. The streams of consciousness converging on that universal nexus, structurally, they're extremely similar to the Lifehold core. Remember what we were talking about before? How Void projecting his mind into the Vita is a lot like the way humans survive inside MIMS. Even with the Lifehold trashed, your consciousness is still being stored somewhere. Not by technology, but by some much larger universal mechanism.
This universal mechanism, what is it?
I lost my daughter to illness. I thought that if I could retrieve her consciousness, I might be able to return her to life.
Reviving the consciousness of the dead?
Yes. The Unus Mundus network, just as its name implies, is a collective subconscious that's existed since the moment the universe was born. It's a fundamental part of nature. Through my research of the Zohar, I discovered the existence of what appears to be human consciousness within the UMN. Consciousnesses are born from the UMN, and they return to the UMN. If I could discover that process, I could fulfill my wish.
Throughout the entirety of Xenoblade, they have played on the idea of what it means to be alive and what is the nature of a human soul. There are multiple things in each of the games you can point to. I just want to run through a list of like the primary ones. In Xenoblade 1, you had the whole idea of like, what even is Shulk? What does it mean for him to be alive? Especially with how interconnected he is with Zanza. That was a massive element of Xenoblade 1, and in Xenoblade 2, you have the entire core system with the blades, and that when the blades die, they revert back to a core crystal, and then when someone else awoke that blade, their memories were wiped. So is that the same blade from before, or is it an entirely new entity? How does that process work? Again, what does it mean to be alive? This was a massive element of Xenoblade 3, especially with how when most people died in the world of Ionios, you just kept cycling again and again and again until a homecoming. Once again, Xenoblade was asking the question, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to have a soul? And what conditions are necessary for you to impact them upon a soul, upon a being, and say, okay, now this is a completely different entity. These are massive philosophical questions in the numbered games, but when it comes to Xenoblade X, it's utilized as a massive plot twist, where it's like, we thought we were alive because we had our souls essentially saved on the cloud when it comes to the Lifehold, but that was never the case. There was actually some universal mechanism that was far more explored in Xenosaga that the characters of Xenoblade X, and honestly 1, 2, and 3 just aren't privy to. They don't have this information. They are working with an incomplete deck. And there are so many things we could get into individually when it comes to like what this could possibly mean and indicate, but in just a few days we're going to have the answers to what the Momo quest amounts to. It's very possible that they pull something like they did with Cosmos and Telos, where the quests associated with those characters are more referenced and aren't necessarily supposed to be some kind of big lore drop and stuff like that. Or it could be the connecting glue we need to get us over to Xenoblade Genesis. There is a spectrum of possibilities here. I just think it's important to keep a lot of these questions in the back of our minds as they continue to unravel and pull on this thread, because it's something they've been pulling. You can argue all the way back in Xenosaga and Xenogears, but if we want to stay just within the realms of Xenoblade itself, they've been asking this question and pulling on it and playing with it since Xenoblade 1. It's not a new phenomenon. It's just that they've been unraveling it more and more as each game goes on. And particularly when it comes to Xenoblade X, they really pushed this to the forefront. No longer was it just an interesting philosophical question to ask in the confines of each respective game. Now they're treating it far more like an inherent element of the universe because, again, according to Xenosaga, it is. And I showed that cutscene of Yoki Mizrai talking to Momo, of all characters in Xenosaga 3, Momo, about the nature of what he believed to be the UMN. And directly related to that is the nature of the collective unconscious and subconscious. So I think just by nature of Momo's quest being called the home of the soul, it feels as if they're building up to something. Again, the magnitude of that is completely up in the air right now until we actually get the quest. But putting the UMN, is it really the logo? It's more like just the acronym. Regardless though, like putting that on Ukun here, which is the bunny, it really does feel as if that's supposed to be a subtle nod to what's going on here. Could just be a bit of interesting reference thrown into the design of the character itself, or it could be hinting at somehow bringing the UMN fully back into the main plot beat of the narrative going on here, if that wasn't what Al was encountering in Xenoblade X. There is a very real chance that the universal nexus that Al is talking about a lot in chapter 13 is the collective unconscious of Xenosaga. Xenoblade X is also the game that introduces the ghosts that I have theorized, and a lot of people have theorized, are just the gnosis of Xenosaga. And if they aren't directly the gnosis, then they're extremely connected. And if you know Xenosaga lore, you know just how interconnected the gnosis are to the collective unconscious. So having the ghost be introduced in the same game, yapping on about this, does not feel like coincidence to me. Especially when the new rare blade being added to Xenoblade 2 at this point is Momo, a main party member of Xenosaga. It's also absolutely fascinating that apparently humanity in the world of Xenoblade X basically created an artificial collective unconscious. Like, that is crazy. Again, I don't want to get too into the weeds with any of this because it's entirely possible that the Momo quest is a nothing burger. I just think it's important to keep all of this in the back of our minds, because if the quest isn't a nothing burger, then oh my god, we're going to be feasting. There's another element to this that we really need to talk about, and that is the fact that Momo has two separate modes. Real mode and imaginary mode. Real mode being light aspected and imaginary mode being aspected towards dark. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because it relates to everything else we've been talking about. According to Xenosaga, this is the universe. It is split into two primary domains. The upper domain, which contains Udu, which we talked about a few days ago, and then where we all are, which is the lower domain. Specifically in the real number domain, which is a subset of the lower domain. What we generally would consider to be the universe is actually the real number domain. There are a bunch of these. In the imaginary number domain, that is where the gnosis are from. It is also in the imaginary number domain over here that we will find the collective unconscious. I'll abbreviate to CU. And when people die over here in the real number domain, their souls are sent to the imaginary number domain to rejoin with the collective unconscious. Gnosis are formed when that individual's soul has enough fear to separate itself from this natural flow. And this big cataclysm that was talked about so much in Xenosaga, where this entire system breaks down and just is annihilated wholesale, is if enough people break away from the collective unconscious and do their own separate thing and become gnosis, that somehow, some way triggers this giant universal cataclysm. Again, if you want to find out more, check out that Udu video from a few days ago. We go into a lot of detail on this issue. And it's also really fascinating stuff, especially how they might reincorporate that into the narrative going forward. Speaking of, the fact that Momo's two different forms reference the real number domain and the imaginary number domain is so dang cool. It could just be a fun little reference because she is a Xenosaga character, right? It 100,000% could just be a little nice reference. If it's not the case and it's actually indicating something story-wise they're really going to explore here, then we are just opening the gates wide open. Particularly if we look at her imaginary form right here, there's two key elements that catch my eye, one of which I heard about on Twitter, but I didn't pick up on it initially. If you look at her body itself, it's this reddish pinkish color. That to me looks an awful like the color and the entire energy field here associated with Udu. Are they trying to establish a connection here? Or again, is it just a fun little reference? On top of that, if you look at the shape of the imaginary form itself, like the silhouette here, this is the one that I had to get from comments because I didn't pick up on this one. I knew it looked familiar, just couldn't place it though. There are some similarities between the design of her imaginary form here, visually speaking, with the design of the ES that she co-piloted with alongside Ziggy back in Xenosaga Zebulon, though that one might just be a nice little reference. But I suppose time will tell, and it seems time is running out. So here's where you come in. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, your ideas going into the Momo quest of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Switch 2 Edition. Leave your wildest, your wackiest theories in the comments down below, and I may react to your theories before the quest goes live, and we can see if anyone can call game. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. But if you need to get up to speed on who Momo is as a character, well, I did a whole breakdown of what her story is, who she is, what she could possibly represent for the future. I got you covered. Check out this video right here for more. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.